Well, let's take a look now at what's making this Friday's French newspapers with our press reviewer, Florence Vimino. She joins me now. Hello, Florence. So, unsurprisingly, of course, we've been talking about it in the news bulletin as well. France's new cabinet met for the first time on Thursday, and that's what's made most of the papers.
Absolutely. It's on the cover of just about every newspaper. We're going to start by looking at Le Figaro, the right-leaning newspaper that says a government that's already under pressure. And there you see a photo of a very serious group of ministers around President François Hollande. Now, according to the newspaper, after all the big speeches, the time has come for action. And, ministers are not going to have to make good on François Hollande's campaign promises, and it doesn't bode well for them, according to the newspaper. In their editorial, which is a play on words, because François Hollande's campaign slogan was "Le changement c'est maintenant," change is now, and there you see the editorial which says "Les embêtements c'est maintenant," trouble is now. Now, the newspaper says that Hollande played a dangerous game during his campaign by making promises that he couldn't keep, kind of doctoring up the numbers, making it seem like France had a lot more money than it does. And to quote the editorial, it says that the fresh smiles of the often young and inexperienced ministers are likely to turn into frowning faces facing these tough times. So rather pessimistic, but inside it has a double-page spread where it outlines Hollande's team, their priorities and their challenges. The main challenges are going to be debt, creating growth, job creation, as well as reforming the school and the justice system.
Okay, and the business daily, Les Echos, also talking about that new cabinet and saying tough times lie ahead, tough tasks for them as well.
That's right. You really get this sense of there's a lot of urgency right now. You see this in a lot of papers, including Les Echos, which says Jean-Marc Ayrault's government is already facing emergency cases. So once again, these same issues, the Eurozone crisis, pension reform, unemployment, and you get that same feeling of urgency in the Christian newspaper La Croix, des ministres sur le pont, so ministers lined up, ready for battle, ready for action. They've hit the ground running, according to the Christian newspaper, which focuses on and applauds some rather symbolic measures that they took yesterday, the 30% pay cut for François Hollande and his ministers, as well as the fact that they signed this unprecedented ethics charter pledging to spend less money and be more transparent. The newspaper also applauds the gender equality and the diversity of this new government. And according to the newspaper, the goal is to mark a very clear difference with Sarkozy's government.
Okay, and that's something that the left-wing newspaper Libération is also focusing on. Unsurprisingly, they're pretty pleased that Mr. Hollande's breaking away from the Sarko years.
It's a new era for Libération, which calls about le régime Hollande, which could be translated as the regime, the Hollande regime, as well as the Hollande diet. And so once again, they talk about this pay cut, etc. And in their editorial, they talk about the fact that this day of transition of power between Sarkozy's ministers and Hollande's ministers is lots of pomp and circumstance, but it's also a very symbolic day when, as you were saying, to show that they're completely different, that they're nothing like their predecessors. And according to Libération, it's an end of Sarkozy's bling-bling era, but it's also a time for Hollande and his ministers to be very careful to make sure that the very first steps of Hollandism go well and that there aren't any faux pas that could stain Hollande's presidency. Now, Libération, that symbols are fine, but it's also really time to get to work. And talking about these urgent issues on the table that need to be addressed: Greece, the Eurozone, et cetera, et cetera.
And Libération also got an interesting article about how the outside world's keeping a close eye on what's happening here in France.
Close eye, especially Brussels, because at a time when Europe is at the heart of a lot of discussions, this article points out that the new government is very diverse. It's on the one hand composed of very pro-European ministers, such as Prime Minister Ayrault, but as well as Eurosceptics like Laurent Fabius, the foreign minister, or Bernard Cazeneuve, the Minister of European Affairs. Now, both of these men led the no vote back in 2005 when there was a referendum on whether or not to sign the European Constitution. Now, according to Libération, this sends very contradictory messages on just what kind of policies Hollande is going to put forward.
Okay, well, thanks very much indeed, Florence, for that look through today's French front pages.